Lynn and I moved onto the property in the fall of 1980, a long time ago. Now, I've told you in previous videos that this is a small mountain town, population 1,100 people. This is a rural community. And even though both of us were born and raised in small towns, Lynn came from a town of 15,000. I came from a town of 5,000. But the difference between the communities that we came from and the community we live in now was stark. It's huge. Even though the population sizes of each of those communities we came from weren't large by and of themselves, they were still very modern towns. In that, we came from towns that had public water, public sewer, public lights. I mean, everything was a modern community. It was a modern town. When we moved out here, we had none of that. We had well water, and we had our own sewer systems or septic systems, and there were no street lights. I mean, it was dark. The first night that we turned the lights off to go to bed, it was dark. I mean, there were no street lights. I mean, there was not even a moon out that night. And it was just dark and quiet. Oh my Lord. There were none of the cars going by on the roads that I live by. It was just dark and it was quiet. Later on, as we became more familiar with the property, with the house, with what it is to live in a small rural mountain town, there were things that started to pop up that we were responsible for. I mean, there was no way we were going to get on the phone and call the sewer or water department and say, hey, you need to fix this. This was all on us. The first time we had to pump out the septic system because some of it had backed into our cellar. What a gross mess that was. The first time we had to have our furnace repaired because the iron and the calcium in the water would solidify, and we'd have to call in furnace repair guys to literally put acid through the system to break away all that calcium. It was a steep learning curve, and we got through it. We did it. We learned the rules, and here we are all these years later. We're still here. We still love the existence. We love the freedom that we get living so far away from those populations, those towns that require so much of us, by definition, rules, regulations, and that kind of stuff. I mean, this town has rules and regulations. No town is a free-for-all, but they are different here. Now, I mentioned all that calcium buildup, and the calcium in the water actually built up on everything. In fact, we, at one point, were having a difficult time flushing the toilets. These I'm talking old school toilets. I'm talking toilets from the 70s and the 80s. Are you old enough to remember those when you flushed the toilet and 5 gallons rushed down through the toilet and moved stuff? All right, as opposed to these newer toilets that save water. Well, anyway, what was happening was that calcium that we didn't understand was actually building up in the swirl part of the bowl. Well, because of that, the toilets wouldn't flush, or they wouldn't flush reliably, and stuff would not go down. And in some cases, it would actually want to overflow the bowl. And we did some research, we asked some questions, and we found out that if we had a lot of calcium in our water, that calcium would actually build up in the swirl part of the bowl. And caused the problem. Came home one day and I heard this noise down in the bathroom. And I go down there and there's Lynn up to her elbows in the toilet bowl with my chisels. And I asked her, I says, "What are you doing?" She said, "Well, I'm getting rid of the calcium." She said, "We've learned that the calcium causes the problems. Well, I can see it, and I can chip it away with the chisels." And I thought, Lynn, I do work with these chisels. These chisels are sharp. I do this so that I can do the best woodworking possible. It didn't faze her because she's a get-her-done kind of person. And if there was a solution, and she recognized the solution, she was going to use it. Well, not only did she use one chisel, but when one chisel got dull, she took a second chisel. And then a third chisel, and by God, she got those two toilets spick and span clean, and they flushed like they were brand new. But that left me with a problem. That left me with an entire set of chisels that needed to be resharpened. I wasn't good at it back then. Matter of fact, I was terrible at it. Getting chisels so they would pair, would cut, was a real struggle for me, which is what made this all so angering for me, because I now had to sharpen all those chisels. But because I was so bad at it, I had to figure out a way to do it better. Now, there are people that I know. My uncle was one. Uncle passed away 3 years ago, but Uncle was phenomenal at this. Uncle could sharpen a chisel. Uncle could sharpen a knife freehand better than anybody I knew. When he sharpened a knife, you wanted to stay away from it because you thought it would cut you all by itself. Anyway, I was never that guy. One of my mentors, one of my teachers that I've talked about on this channel over the years, he was the same way. He could sharpen a chisel, he could sharpen a hand plane, all by hand, all by eye, and damn if that thing would not pare wood like butter. Like you looked at it and it would cut wood. I'm not that guy. I had to figure this out. I had to come up with another plan for doing this. So I studied this and I came up with ways of doing this that were better than the ways I could do it on my own. Now you got to know, this was days before YouTube. The internet was very new at this point. Everything you learned from a book. Do you remember books, guys? I have a library full of books for woodworking, for hand planes, for chisels, for all of those things that most of us today take for granted on the internet. Didn't have that back then. So in the process of doing that, also catalogs. Remember catalogs? Okay, catalogs, woodworking catalogs. Man, you could buy or get a woodworking catalog and they had everything in it. Everything from the chisels to the hand planes to the books to the wood to everything. So in those books, in those catalogs, was a jig. And I thought, well, being from a mechanical, being from a factory, being from an industrial background, I'm thinking that'll work. That's something I can recognize. That's something that I can understand. That's something that I can use. And ever since that day, I use my jig, I use the techniques that I've learned, and I sharpen my chisels. Today, it's chisel sharpening day. Lynn has been hands off. She doesn't use my chisels. But today I'm going to sharpen my chisels. And I thought I'd take you through the process of sharpening one chisel and explain to you my process, how I do it, what I've learned, and how I get through it. If you're interested in learning how I sharpen chisels, stick around, that's today's video. Before I start sharpening chisels, I want to talk a little bit about chisels. There are long chisels, there are short chisels, there are fat chisels, there are wide chisels, there are chisels for different things. I have chisels for cutting wood on my wood lathe. I have tiny detail chisels for doing exactly that, detailing small cuts, small things in small ways. I have my Stanley chisels. Now, here is where things can get pretty interesting, because there are woodworkers who will swear that the finest chisels are German chisels, Swiss chisels, Japanese chisels, chisels. I think when it comes to choosing a chisel, you need to think about what it is you intend to do with the chisel, how often you intend to use the chisel, what the chisel needs to do, how it needs to be used, why you need to use it, and why you need to spend thousands of dollars for the most expensive chisels available. I have no objections to any of it. I own Stanley chisels. Now, this was back in the day when Stanley was Stanley, and of course I don't think Stanley owns Stanley anymore, but that doesn't matter. And I've had a lot of people tell me that the worst decision I ever made was buying Stanley chisels. But I'm telling you guys, they take an edge, they take a nice edge, and for everything that I've ever done with them, these chisels, these Stanleys with the yellow handle, have done everything that I've ever asked them to do. I've installed hinges on doors. I've worked on gun stocks. You've seen me in the last video where I used my Stanley chisel to pare away the material so that I could put that wedge in, that Stephen's favorite, to repair that gun stock. Chisels. Choose a chisel that's based on your budget, based on what it is you think you're going to do with it, based on how often you're going to use it. If chisels become an ego thing or become something that you need to buy to prove that you're a professional woodworker, then go do it. But think hard before you spend the money.